We are Anita and Preben, and we are living in Denmark in the countryside with our German Shepherd, Holly. We are raising our own chickens, ducks and geese, and we are also butchering them and making a lot of yummy foods. We try to grow as much as possible of fruits and veggies, and we are preserving it in different ways. I also like to bake and make other yummy stuff, and most of it is keto. Welcome to our channel. We have a lot of apples in our garden, so each year I'm making a lot of apple jelly. And this is from the time where Chick were visiting in the end of August, and we were picking a lot of the apples. This is in our main garden, and then on the other side of the road we have our kitchen garden and some more fruit trees. And these are some of the really red apples that are also red on the inside, and those I'm going to use in the first apple jelly that I'm making today. And that's why the apple jelly will get really red, because they're both red on the outside and on the inside. So it's really beautiful, even though I'm mixing it with some of the other apples. And this is the inside of the apple. And this is how many of those small red apples we got, and some of them from the normal apple trees. And this is a few days later. I just had them in my pantry where it's a bit cooler, and now I'm going to make the apple jelly. The apples are not really dirty, so I'm just giving them a quick rinse from the hose. And Holly is also with me in the garden, so she's going to have a treat before I move on with the apples. And while she's enjoying her treat, I will go and set up the table. And I have these white tubs that I'm using a lot when I'm meal prepping and doing a lot of fruits and veggies at the same time. So I'm just cutting my apples in halves or in fourths. And this is the really red apple on the inside. They're so beautiful. And if it's a big apple, I will quarter them, and if they're not so big, I'll just cut them into halves. And if there's any bad spots, I will also remove those. When you're making apple jelly, you will use both the apple and the skin and the insides, the core and everything, because that is where most of the pectin is. So to make the jelly, you have to have a lot of pectin. This is bad spot where there has been some insects, so I'm just cutting that off, and then the chickens will get that later. If you are using sour apples, they will have more pectin than a sweet apple, but you can always put some gelling agent in the apple jelly to make it more firm and not so runny. And now I'm just cleaning up after myself and taking the apples into the kitchen, and then I will go on with boiling them. And while I'm doing this, Holly is in her kennel behind the camera. We just built it, so it's pretty new to her, and she doesn't really like to be locked in there. but she has to learn, and I can tell you that now she really enjoys being there. This is recorded in the beginning of September, and now we are in the beginning of November. So it's some time since I recorded this video. And this was a warm day, so before I'm beginning with the apples inside, I will have a sparkling water, and this is with elderflower and lime. So it's really nice to have a cold drink when I'm working in the kitchen. And I'm just rinsing off the apples once more, and then I will get my really big pot. I can have 18 liters in that pot, and I will fill it to the rim with apples. And for each kilo of apples, I will put in 600 milliliters of water, and I will link the recipe down in the description that I am using here. And after I have filled all of the water in, I will put on the lid and turn on the stove. And then it will boil for maybe 30 to 60 minutes, or when the apples are mushy. And then I have this sift to drain off all of the juice. Now that it's boiling, the apples will rise to the top because of all of the air that's inside of the apples. So I'm just pushing some of the harder apples down so that they can also boil, and then some of the softer ones will get on top. And when they are looking like this, they are ready. So I am scooping all of the apples into this bag, and then they will drain off all of the juice into the pot underneath. And it will take some time for it to drain, so I have 2 of these bags that I can fill, and then they will drain off for maybe an hour or so. And then I will take the mostly dry apples and put them into a tub, and then the chickens will get it later in the day. So I'm just dumping it into this big tub, and then I can drain off some more of the apples. And as I mentioned, it will take some time, so it's good to have several of these bags that it can drain in. You can also just use a dish towel or some muslin cloth or something like that, where the pulp cannot get through, but all of the juice can get through it. And the chickens really love all of this apple pulp. Now I have rinsed off my big pot and poured all of the juice in, and then I'm weighing it. I find that that is the easiest way instead of measuring everything. I know what my pot weighs, so it's easy that way. And I'm using some citric acid. These are 3 small bags. I'll just put that into it. And for every liter of apple juice you will use 1 kilo of sugar. And these are some vanilla beans, and I will both use the corns inside of the bean, but I will also put the whole bean inside of the apple juice for it to boil with, and it will give it a lot of really nice vanilla taste. I never use vanilla in liquid form. I don't like the taste of it, so I'm always using vanilla beans like this when I'm making apple jelly, and it will give it a whole other taste. And you can see all of those tiny black spots in the jelly when it's finished. But first I'm going to boil it, then I will put in some regular sugar, and after, when I have pulled off all of the foam, I will put in the vanilla beans. And I crushed the bean seeds with some sugar just to separate all of the little seeds so that they will not just be in one big clump. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm putting in about a kilo of sugar for each liter of juice. And that is also what makes the jelly set. So you can reduce some of the sugar, but then you have to put in some gelling agent. Now I'm cleaning my jars that I'm using, and some of the jars I'm using are reused from some store-bought things, and then other of them are entirely new jars that this is the first time I'm using. But you can surely use whatever kind of jars you like. And now the jelly is boiling with a lot of the sugar, and now I'm pulling off the foam, and then I can get my vanilla into it. And the longer time the jelly is boiling, the thicker it will be, but I still feel that this is pretty liquidy, as you can see. So I'm putting in some sugar with gelling agent in it. It's just pectin that is inside of the sugar, but it can only boil for about 3 minutes after I put this in, so that is why I'm doing it at the end. Then I will wait for it to boil again, and I will set my timer for 3 minutes when it's boiling like this. And now I can also feel that it's getting much thicker, and when I'm pulling up my spoon, you can really see the drops are a lot thicker and they are really sticking to the spoon. And now I know that it's ready. So when it cools off, it will be really gelatinous. And now I'm removing the vanilla beans and just a little more of the foam, and then I will put it into my jars. I have rinsed my jars both with hot water, and then I'm using something called atamon, that is a preservative that I have also rinsed them in, and I also put some of that into the juice. So that will make so that it can keep without water bathing it. So I'm just filling up all of my jars, and then I'm putting the lid on top, but loosely. I'm not closing it, because some people say that it won't get into a jelly consistency if you close the jars right away. I don't really think that I have ever had a problem with doing it, but this time I'm just doing it like this. And this is the finished product from our first batch with all of the red apples, and it's just so beautiful, this color. Just look at it, really clear gel. And this is the next day, and it has all set up now, so I'm just cleaning the rims before I will put on the lids and lock them tightly. And because of the preservative and all of the sugar, they will keep for several years, even though they have not been water bathed. And then I'm cleaning them with a wet cloth, just so that there's not anything sticky on the outside. And I'm putting a sticker on top where it says what it is and the year, and some of them I will sell in my roadside stand, so I will also put a price on those. But I have this box that I can put all of the jars into, so it's a little easier for me to get the rest out in my pantry. And this is about 1 month later, where I'm making a huge portion of apple jelly. We had a lot of apples, so I made 2 pots this time. And I also had some pears, so this is an apple and pear jelly. And I will also make a few jars with the elderberries, so it will be real dark. And this is for the chickens. So I have almost 18 liters of juice this time, and all of these jars I have made ready to put all of the juice into, so it will jelly. And this is the elderberries. So now I just emptied all of that out into the jars, and I have more than 50 jars this time, so it was pretty hard to fill all of them. And I just put the lids on the side so I can put them on later. And these are the apple jellies with elderberries in, so it's a really beautiful color. And I've never tried this combo before, so we will see how that tastes. And all of these jars with the same lids on are some that I just bought, so that is the first use, but the ones in the back I have used several times, so that is not a problem. And we have this little room beside our pantry, and it is just for overflow, so we have these really tiny narrow shelves that we built on the back, not on the back of the door, but behind the door, so it's only 1 jar deep. And thank you really much for watching, and please subscribe and follow us on Instagram. And yeah, thank you, bye bye.